Hey everyone, welcome back to Two Bowls of Guac, the Surrounded podcast.
Yay.
We're so glad that you've chosen to watch or listen again. This has been fun to do. This is our fifth.
Yeah, I have
Wow.
no idea.
We've done
Fourth, fifth?
I think this is 5. This is our third episode of mental health.
Right.
So no, this
And
is 4.
This is 4.
This is 4.
This is
Got
4.
it. This is
Yeah.
4. So this is our 4th episode. I'm back here with Kristen again. It's just her and I.
It's just us
We're
on the couch.
we're at my house,
just hanging
chilling
out.
on the couch,
Hanging out
and
with some
there's-
microphones in front of our faces.
and there's
you know?
dog hair everywhere.
Yeah. I brought some with me
Yeah,
from my own house. So
we both have pets,
we do.
and they rule the house
Sure do.
because who else would?
As they should. Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. I
Yep.
try to act like I'm the alpha male, but I'm definitely not.
Nobody for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's still a big fat baby. Like, it just is what
Sure
it is.
is.
Yeah. Insert photo here.
Yay.
Hannah's here.
Stutzman.
Hannah's here who has to edit this.
Yeah.
So I'll have to send her a photo so that she can figure out
Yeah.
how to insert it into the podcast. This is gonna be
You're
awesome.
welcome, Hannah.
Oh yes, this is so good.
Oh.
Anyways, so
We're off to a good
today,
start.
we are. This is great. This is
Yeah.
great for the mental health. Honestly,
Yes,
laughing
honestly,
is great.
Yes, it is.
It really is. Today we are actually going to be wrapping up our mental health series. Today we're going to be talking specifically in the realm of mental health about family issues and things like outside of yourself directly affecting
Mhm.
your mental health. And we're going to kind of be journeying through my journey
It's your turn.
a little bit,
Yep.
which gives me great,
It's the worst, huh?
it gives me great trepidation.
Yeah. What a great word.
Yes.
Proud of you.
Put the definition for trepidation at the bottom here, right here.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. It's just going to say nope at the bottom.
Yeah, no thanks. LOL.
Love that. But yeah, I'm nervous about it. Not because I don't enjoy telling my story, because I feel like my story's wild.
It is. It's a great story. Great's not the right word.
Well,
but
yeah.
it is. It's a great story.
It's been I've seen the impact that it's had on other people, which is great. And I know now in retrospect why God put myself and my family through what we've been through. But like, this is different talking about it in this like realm, just
Right.
because like it's a little bit more intimate, it's a little bit more real.
Right.
A lot of times I talk about it in a very joking manner, which I'll talk about. Which yeah, we'll see how this goes.
We'll get there.
We'll get
Yeah,
there.
can't
But
wait.
yeah, so we're going to be talking about that a little bit. But of course, segment number 1, we've of course got first things first.
First things first.
First things first, guys. It is allergy
I can't
season.
breathe.
Guys.
I'm so sorry for what my voice sounds like.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
sure I'm trying really hard not to sniff directly into the microphone.
Yeah, it's just going to happen.
There it is.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
This is the best I've sounded all day though.
Yeah.
So
Like, I just took an allergy pill right before this.
I took Sudafed before I left.
And then, nice.
Yep.
Love that you put the brand on it.
Yeah.
Like, love that.
Sponsor us.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine
you
if Sudafed sponsors the podcast? How do we do an ad for them?
Tell me you live in Florida without telling me you live in Florida.
Yeah, actually. But dude, it's crazy. Like, literally, you just said it. Like, your car's literally orange.
There's
Like,
a film of
and we
pollen.
both live in places where we park, like at my house
Oh my
and at your
gosh.
apartment, we both park under trees.
It's covered. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no escaping it.
And like, my truck's white.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's over.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally over.
Yeah.
Like, I was fine. So like, I work from home. So like, I can avoid the outside for as long as I want
I
to.
hope I can't.
Yeah, you cannot.
Well, and at school, like I have to go outside. Like I have my classroom, but if I have to go anywhere else, I have to go outside. Like if
Right.
I want to go to the bathroom, I have to go outside.
And we've established, because I thought you were in a portable.
No, I'm not in a portable.
You are not in a
anymore.
portable
Mm-mm.
anymore.
I was for a long time, but I'm
Right.
not anymore.
I don't know if we talked about that on the pod when we talked about you teaching or not.
Man,
You were in a portable for how long?
forever.
Do you miss portable life?
No. Well, no. So I left.
That's
Being
not
in a
good
portable
answer.
is nice because I've been at a portable at 2 of the schools that I've worked at.
Okay.
And it's nice because no one ever wants to go out to the portables. So like they just leave you alone. Like no matter where the
That's
portables
nice.
are. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. So sorry everybody. I'm trying to like really fight it. Yeah, people just leave you alone. But then the problem is from like a teaching standpoint, it doesn't feel like a classroom. So there is
Yeah.
something psychological, especially for high schoolers. I don't know. I've only ever taught in a portable in high school, but the kids don't take it seriously because it's not a real classroom.
Yeah.
So my portable at the school that I'm at now, because they like put those in knowing they were going to be in there for a while, it felt like a classroom. Like it actually
Right.
looked like one.
Yeah.
But at my old school, it was literally like a shipping container with some desks in it.
No, that's not.
And so I was like, this is a real class. Please take me seriously. But like, but it's not.
I know we're literally
Like,
in
I
a shipping
know.
container.
Yeah. So now I have like a real classroom.
So you don't have to
With four
face
walls.
the allergens of the world that often necessarily.
Just like enough.
It's so bad right now, though.
It's so bad. That's what I'm saying. Like all it took was me like going to make copies today.
Yeah.
And then I got back to my classroom and I was like, cool, I didn't want to breathe. Like I couldn't get through a sentence for a while without sneezing. Like it was a whole thing today.
It's legit. Like, yeah, it's so terrible. And yeah, and it's like, there's nothing that I can do to fight it.
Correct.
Like literally nothing I can do to fight it. And I don't know, like, because I used to be a big Zyrtec guy.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gave me a medicine rash,
No.
which is like, it's just gross looking.
And that's like worse than the allergies almost.
Not necessarily,
Like a
because
different kind.
you don't feel it. It's not itchy,
Oh,
but it's like just massive blotches. Like normally it's on your back
I hate that.
and on your neck.
Oh.
And it's like, I'm not going to describe it. Well, I mean, it's not necessarily that gross, but it's just like, it's almost as if you, like you have like dead skin or whatever, and so it just starts to like flake,
Yeah.
and then it just looks like I have mad dandruff, and like I'm not with that.
Oh, yeah, no, that's not cool.
So like not with that, and so I'm like, yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Just allergies suck. Florida is great most of the time,
Yeah.
but sucks.
Not this time of year.
No.
And it's like hot again.
Yeah.
Like it's
The cold
it's
is over.
snowing in other places in the country right now.
Dude, so
And
I
it's
was
80 right now.
I was talking to somebody because I work remote. I was talking to somebody on a Zoom call today, and they're just outside of Tempe, Arizona, and it snowed. Like she took a picture of her backyard and made it her Zoom background because she
Cool.
wanted everybody to see that it literally snowed.
And like I wore a t-shirt outside today
Yeah,
and was like a little warm.
yeah. I
I
don't get it. I don't get the world.
No, I don't. That makes my brain can't. It makes
Yeah.
no sense to me how
Zero.
we're in the same country. But
Yeah, it's yeah. But anyways, let's get off
Let's move
that
on.
before we both just start sneezing talking about allergies. That's so gross.
yeah,
Oh gosh.
we'll just go back and forth.
Let's jump to on repeat.
Yes,
We didn't have this this segment these last couple weeks.
right
But let's get to on repeat.
because I think we've both had the same song stuck in our head all week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Because we both went to church together
We did,
on Sunday,
we did,
and we walk in. We were a little bit late, but you know
but it's fine.
it's okay.
But
we were there. Come on. We got in, and they're playing this song, and I had never heard it before, but I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, this is a bop.
And I come in and I'm like, yeah, this song has been all over my Instagram
Yeah.
for like weeks, and so I'm like, I hear it coming in, and I was like, this is yes,
Right.
yes, Lord.
And it's called
Just the mention of his name.
Just the Mention of His Name by Belonging Co. And it is so simple.
Yeah.
It's just a rock show, man.
Dude, it's so fun.
The cool thing about it for like worship people out there who do what we do on a regular basis, it's very simple lyrically.
Mhm.
So like your vocalists will be able to get into it a little bit
Mhm.
more because they're not having to remember as many lyrics, and so just timing is going to be a thing for them. But for instrumentalists, it's a fun song to play because there's so many different rhythmic changes.
Oh, it's so fun.
So it's like, it's not just like, regular worship song where it's like, you start like low and then you build and then you're low and then you build and then you're like big and whatever. There's like literal different rhythm changes
Right.
within it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And it kind of just creates this nice little masterpiece within the song.
And it's just so
And then
fun.
Natalie Grant is just in there just murdering
We know
it.
how I feel
Yeah.
about my girl Natalie. Well, Belonging Co is so great because it's like in Nashville, and it's where all the worship leaders go to church.
Right.
So the stuff they put out is just like,
It's crazy.
it's dumb,
Yeah.
and I love it.
My wife lived in Nashville for a year, and she checked out Belonging Co. And, my wife's a little, I wouldn't say traditional, but she's like, church got to be like hour and 15 max. Blanco services be like 2.5 hours.
They're done when they're done.
Yeah, they just be going.
Yeah.
And Savannah's like, just like I'll go.
Yeah.
Every once in a while I'll go for a worship night, whatever. But like I can't. 2.5 hours. That's a long time.
That is a long time. However, if like Carrie Job or Natalie
Yeah.
Grant or Danny Goki or Cody Carnes are leading me in worship, okay.
I would say out loud that I think that I could still do it for 2.5 hours.
That's true.
But at some point I'm gonna be like, all right, like love you guys, but like
yeah.
I'm hungry.
Or it's gonna be over and I'm gonna be like, wow, I want to die.
Yeah.
Like I'm so tired.
Yeah.
And need a nap for days, and
Yeah.
I'm just too old. It's fine.
Yeah, and it's like church is great, community is great, and I'm actually going to talk about a little bit of that with my story. But like at some point, it's time to like cut it off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like church, it's not like when church stops, like your worship doesn't have to end when church stops.
True.
Worship can continue in the lobby. It can continue in your car.
Right.
It can continue when you get home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not just the singing.
It can continue at lunch with people that you go with
Yeah.
after church. Like that worship continues. So like
Right.
we're not saying, it's got to be an hour and 15.
Yeah, 12
tight,
o'clock, I'm out.
Like I got to bounce. Like
Yeah.
it's not saying that. It's just like, worship continues outside of the church. And I feel like sometimes, I don't know. I guess it just depends on your upbringing. It depends
Right.
on the type of churches that you went to growing up. Because like for me, like I grew up in a church when my dad was a pastor. That's a good segue. Let's jump into
Let's do
what
it.
we're going to talk about today. Before I talk about my father, because he is a big part of
Yeah.
this story. So yeah, I guess I'm just going to kind of let you take it away.
It's my turn this week.
Yeah.
So let's start with like just kind of in general, because both of us have experienced anxiety in lots of different forms.
Yeah.
It's how we bonded, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But let's talk about like outside effects on anxiety. Like for me, the first thing I think of, like when you mentioned this to me earlier, is like triggers, like the things for me that will make it worse. And that was a big part of my journey, was figuring out what makes my anxiety. Like, yes, anxiety is something that's happening in my brain. What situations am I going to put myself in that like makes it worse? So
yeah. For me, it's interesting, like my journey with anxiety, because I never talk about it.
Right.
I never talk about it. I don't tell people that I struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's really only like 2 or 3 people in my life
Yeah.
that know that I struggle so much with anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's because I have anxiety about having anxiety, and
It's the best, isn't it?
I have anxiety about how people will react
Yep.
to the fact that I have that.
Yeah.
Because I don't like people feeling sorry for me.
Yes.
I really don't. And it's like to the point where like I will make it seem as if I'm completely 100% okay all the time if I have to,
Mhm.
because I don't do well with other people feeling sorry for me and
like
everything like
when
that.
Sarah talked about feeling like a burden, like
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard for me to kind of deal with that, and that comes from a multitude of different things that have happened
Mm-hmm.
in my life. I don't know if you want me to go into that now or
Go.
Well, so
We can bounce around. I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of this kind of
it all kind of
goes
flows together. Yeah. My story, I'll give it kind of short and sweet, because the details don't matter that much to like you guys who are listening. They matter more to me just because of like everything I kind of had to walk through in that.
right.
And it's not the fact that I don't want to share it. It's just like they're just details that don't matter, and you'll understand in a minute.
Right.
So I grew up Christian home. Dad was a pastor. I was a PK.
Mm-hmm.
So, I ruled the church,
You sure did.
ran around, did all the PK things.
Yep.
And I, my mom was, teaching Sunday school classes. She was I think it's called Cubbies in Awana. She was like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, she
Yes,
was like
it
the
was.
Cubbies teacher.
Whoa.
And like it
Unlocked
was,
a little
yeah,
something deep in my brain there.
right. And my mom's best friend at the time, like, ran Awana. So it was like everybody that I was associated with the church
Yeah.
that my dad pastored.
Okay.
So I didn't know anybody else in my life outside of my family, like outside of this church.
Yeah.
Nobody. And I was young. I was in elementary school. We lived in Tampa at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I walk into the front living room of the house we were living in at the time. And my dad's in his lazy boy and he calls me in, and I'm the oldest of 4. Mm-hmm. So at this point I was really the only one that could understand a little bit of what was going on, but not fully. And so it's like a random weekday. I think it was like a Monday or Tuesday. My dad calls me in the room and he was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know. And this is very fast and very sudden. So, but I've resigned at the church and we're going to be moving to Lakeland." And I fell apart.
Yeah.
Absolutely fell apart.
Because that's all you've ever known.
All I've ever
known. That place,
yeah. Yeah, that's all I've ever known. And I distinctly remember that moment. And then from there, it's kind of a blur. We moved to Lakeland. We move into what at one point was my mom's mom, my grandma, and my grandpa Larry. It was their house, or it was at their time their house, or at one time their house, and then we moved in there. Did life, whatever. A few months, maybe it was closer to a year later, we get called into the living room. Again.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it was the dining room. It doesn't matter.
Nope.
And they were like, "Hey," they told me and my brother Trevor at the same time, because we're the older two. And they're like, "Hey, Dad made some mistakes, and so I'm going to be going to jail for a few months."
So how old are you at this point?
I am in 7th grade.
Okay.
So we had to have been there for over a year. I was either in 6th or 7th grade, one of the two.
So pretty young, but old enough to know that
old enough to know that this is hardcore, and that he was going to be gone. He was going to be gone for 90 days.
Okay.
So it's what we were told.
Okay.
So he was going to be gone for 3 months. He had told my younger siblings that Dad was going on a work trip. And so he was going to be gone for a long time. And so he goes, he turns himself in, was what was happening. He turns himself in, he goes in, because that was the deal that was worked out, is, he turns himself in. And the details of that will come up later, because the same thing happens again. So he goes, he turns himself in, serves the 3 months, he comes home, we move into a new house, and life kind of gets regular.
Right.
I'm in high school. I'm doing dumb high school things, being dumb high school Jake, as I was.
One does.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had terrible relationship with my parents for my first 2 years of high school, and then my parents became my best friends in my last 2 years of high school, which I feel like is pretty regular for most people. Or I won't say most, but for some people.
Yeah.
And then I graduate high school. I go away, and I served at this camp, and it was an amazing experience. I come home and I apply to be a part of this internship at this local church that's here, and I'm having just this amazing freshman year of college. I'm on a whole new high. I'm the closest I've ever been with God in my entire life, because I'm by myself. This is my faith now.
Okay.
Where I was really riding my parents' faith for years.
Right.
For my whole life.
Yeah.
Basically until my senior year of high school. I rode my parents' faith. And I was leading worship throughout high school and even middle school and stuff like that, for youth and different things like that. But I didn't really know what a close relationship with God was until my senior year, because I was gone. I was living in Kentucky, working at a camp, and I had to be able to have that close relationship with God. I learned how to read the Bible. I learned how to do all those things on my own. It was the summer of my senior year.
Yeah.
Come home, start this internship, and it was an amazing experience. I absolutely loved it. I would plug it and talk about it, but this is the last year they're doing it.
Oh,
so I don't want to promote it because they're going to be done.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. It was at an amazing church, amazing leadership. And I just had the best time. I just had the best time. It was about 3/4 of the way through the internship, I get a call from my mom. It's a random afternoon. I just finished what they had called rotations, which is where there was 4 different ministries of the church. There was creative, which was worship and audio, visual, that type of stuff. Stewardship, which is the finances. Discipleship, which is small groups, different things like that. And then there was the ministries, which was youth and young adults and kids.
Okay.
At this point, I was in discipleship. At this point, I'm pretty sure. I was in the 3rd of the 4th. We were wrapping up discipleship, I think. And I get a call from my mom. And I'm driving home. She was like, "Have you heard from your dad?" I was like, "Now that you say that, no, I haven't heard from him all day." And she was like, "Huh, he normally calls me at lunch." And I was like, "That's weird." And I look at my texts, and I'm like, "Yeah, I texted him this morning." And at this internship, it was like we had a lot of stuff going on, so it was like regular for me to not check my phone for hours.
You hadn't thought about it since the morning.
So I text him right as I'm on the phone with my mom, like, "Busy day, I guess?" ?
Yeah.
And I drive home. I get home, or to my apartment, and my roommate's sitting in the living room, and my mom calls me. She was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "I just got to my apartment. I was about to go work out."
Hanging out.
And she was like, "Well, your dad's been arrested." Says it just like that.
And I love your mother. And I can hear her being like, "Okay, well, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
So you can go work out, but just so you know."
Yeah, she was like, "Hey,
So
your dad's
nonchalant.
been arrested." And I was like,
Your whole life didn't just change, but
I was like, "What? What are you talking about? What happened?" She's like, "I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out, but I can't." And then she was basically trying to deal with, the however it is you contact people, and I don't know what it was called, like the JPay stuff or whatever. For those of you who have people who are in the system, that you guys know what that is, but she couldn't figure it out, and she sounded very annoyed.
Yeah.
Which normally when my mom gets annoyed, she starts to get emotional. And so
I understand.
I'm thinking to myself, because I didn't remember at that point what had happened previously, because life was so different now.
Oh, okay.
Life was so different now.
Yeah.
That I didn't think for a second that this could be happening again.
Right.
So I was like, I wonder if a misunderstanding happened, maybe because he was working at a place where he was working in construction, he was working in sales, and people get mad and stuff like that. So maybe something happened, maybe he got in a car accident and something went down, whatever. I'm thinking case scenario is way outside of this. So I'm like, I'll be to the house in 20 minutes. So I hang the phone up, and my face is white. My roommate looks at me and he goes, "Are you all right?" And I was like, my dad's in jail. My dad was just arrested. And he looked at me and he was like, he literally goes, "Dude, I'm so sorry. I literally don't know what to say to you."
Because what do you say?
No, nothing.
I wouldn't.
And I literally was like, I literally think I threw my hands up and went and changed, got in my car, drove to my mom's house. I get to my mom's house, and she is sitting in the driver's seat of her car, just wailing.
Yeah.
Because for 2 reasons. One, I think she had figured out what had happened. And 2, she was frustrated at the fact that she couldn't get a hold of him.
Right.
Because my dad kept trying to call, and when you call, you have to answer and put money on it.
Right.
But it wasn't taking it. So it was all these emotions wrapped up into one.
Yeah.
And when I pulled into the driveway, I see, because at the time all my siblings still lived at my mom's house.
Right.
And I pull in, and they're looking at me like, "What do we do?"
Right.
And so I walk up, and I'm like, "Everybody go inside." My mom's wailing, and she's just beside herself, and I don't know what to do.
Right.
Who would? She doesn't know what to do. Nobody did. So she finally gets a hold of him. Stuff happens, whatever. And he had basically, my dad had, and he would tell you this, had this massive fear of failing. And so he would go to illegal limits to make sure that he did not fail, that our family did not fail, that the company he represented did not fail. And so it was a financial thing. He dealt he did some different things, and it was not anything. It was a white collar thing. It was not a violent thing. No drugs or anything like that were involved or anything like that. But it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Similar thing that he did with the church back whenever I was younger. He had done some things because the church financially was not doing well, and he didn't want the church to fail. And he knows, he's very different, which I'll get to all that because it's not about him, it's about me. Right. But so we find that out, and we kind of start walking this journey of he's going to be in there for God knows how long.
Right.
I think it was about a year later that he was sentenced to 7 years. And at this point, he's going to serve all 7.
Wow.
And so it was like, well, we have a new life now.
Right.
And it changed everything for my family and for me.
Yeah.
I had to immediately essentially give up the rest of my college years and my childhood.
Because you're next. I mean, you're the oldest, and you're the oldest son.
Yeah.
So that falls to you.
So I had dropped out of my internship. I finished the year and dropped out of my internship, came home, worked full time, still went to school full time, and helped provide for the house because my mom, could not afford to live in the house we were living in without somebody helping her. So I did what I needed to do, and it changed my life forever, and it changed my perspective on so many things.
Yeah.
And for me during that time, one of the things that I had to really figure out is following God really worth it? Is it really worth it?
Yeah. Because
our family has always followed God. Always. I'd always followed God. I was in a Christian internship, like studying to be a pastor, and I'm doing all this stuff. It wasn't just like
lip service for you. It was like,
no,
this is your
like
this
I'm
is your
living
life.
I'm living it. This is what I want to do. I want to serve the kingdom.
Right.
And then this happens.
Right.
And it changed absolutely everything for me. And so I had to make, some decisions in my life of, how much does my faith matter to me? Something that God taught me almost right away was, so within this time, I'd never fasted before, because I didn't understand it.
Right.
Which is regular.
That's normal. Yeah.
Yeah. Many people don't. And if you don't, you should study it. And if you don't want to study it, you should talk to somebody who knows about fasting, because it's very beneficial for your life.
Yeah.
But at the time we were fasting for a big youth event that was coming up. So all the interns, we had to serve at youth. It was like a thing. And everybody, all leadership was fasting for this big youth event that we were going to be having. So we were fasting for 3 weeks. The first week was social media, the regular things. Second week was the Daniel fast.
Oh, yeah.
And then the third week was whatever you wanted, but it needed to be something that was going to be gut wrenching for you. During
not
that
just
whole
I'm
second,
just not going to drink coffee in the morning.
Right?
Yeah.
But then I'm going to drink it as soon as it hits 12 p.m.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I just won't do it in the morning. Yeah. But that whole second week during the Daniel fast, all I did was complain about it. This is dumb. I don't get this. I don't understand it. They can't force me to do this. It's very on brand for me.
Well, just in general with the Daniel fast.
Yeah. And so I was like, this is horrible. This is the worst. I hate this. They can't force me to do this. And then near the end of the week, I, started understanding because I started studying. I talked to my dad about it. I figured out, okay, I understand why this is important.
Yeah.
So the third week, I decided to do the Daniel fast again and just continue it for 2 weeks, because I was like, I did not do a great job of it the first week. I need to continue to sacrifice this more. During that third week was when everything went down. I was at the most peaceful place I've ever been in my faith at that time.
Yeah.
for one of the worst things in my life to happen to me.
Right.
If nothing in my life has made my faith stronger than that. Nothing.
Yeah.
Because that's not a coincidence, bro.
Not at all.
Like,
no, God doesn't do those.
No. It was on purpose.
100%.
And because otherwise, 100% honesty, I don't know that I would be here.
Right.
I wouldn't have been able to handle it.
Right.
I was way too immature.
Right.
Way too lazy.
Yeah.
Like all of that. Like I was like, there's no shot that I would be, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't be on this earth, because I don't know that I would have had the courage to go through with something like that. Yeah. However, we would not be doing this right now.
No.
I would not be following Jesus.
Right.
That's for darn sure.
Right.
Like, we'd be over that.
Yeah.
And I would probably be blackout drunk on somebody's couch in Jacksonville right now.
Right.
If I'm 100% honest with you.
Right.
And like working at Pizza Hut.
Sure.
Or something stupid. Because that's where I was headed. I was that lazy.
Yeah.
And that much of like, I don't care. And it just changed that. Like, I needed that.
Right.
Like, some people, I've said this before, like some people need, like we've talked about before, like when, you know, the shepherd leaves the 99 to find the one. When he finds the one, like everyone's like, oh, you know, he brings it back nicely. Like, no, he broke the sheep's leg, but then he puts it over his shoulders, carries it home, and nurses it back to health.
Right.
Because it's the imagery of like, all you need is the shepherd, and for us, all we need is Jesus. Like, that's what we need.
Right.
And he had to do that to me.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I was not listening.
No.
It just wasn't happening.
Right.
And so selfishly, I feel like all of these things happened specifically for me. But then I look at the life of my mom and my dad and my siblings. I'm like, no, all of us needed it. Yeah. All of us needed a recentering. Because otherwise, I don't know where we would all be. I really don't. Right. I genuinely really don't. And I don't say that in like a, you know, flippant sense. Like, I genuinely have no idea. Our family would not be like it is right now. Our family is extremely, extremely close. Yeah. I don't know that it would be like that. Yeah. Otherwise. So that was one of the most difficult things that's ever happened, or the most difficult thing that's ever happened in my life. But during that time, my anxiety got so much worse.
What I was just going to ask is, where does the anxiety kind of weave in with all that?
Yeah, my anxiety got so much worse during that time because I had so much weighing on my shoulders. Right. That I was not ready for. Sure. And initially, I didn't know how to. I just thought I needed to handle it. I thought, okay, God handed me this. I have to handle it in my own strength. Right. So he gave me this. I was very much of the mindset of, you know, God doesn't give what was it that Sarah said on the last episode? Gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. Yeah. I was like, I just must be a really strong soldier. Right. And I was like, wait a minute.
Because this crap's tough.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Hold on.
We all suck. Yeah. Like, none of us are his strongest soldier. Nobody is. But it got so much worse during that time. But I had to kind of take a step back in my life to realize where it started. Because before we get to where you were like, hey, you have this, was it because it grew so much. Right. But where it started, I had to go all the way back to my youth group days. And I just want to preface this for anybody who's watching this, who knows me personally and knows who or what I'm talking about. I don't say the things that I'm about to say with malice intent. Right. I don't say the things that I'm going to say because I want to hurt anybody's feelings. This is just my story.
And it's real, and it's what happened.
It's just my story.
Yeah.
So when I was in youth group, I had, which is still on brand for me, I feel like, the biggest head on the planet. Not physically. You know what I mean? But
keep my mouth shut over here. I'm just gonna just keep talking.
So I just had, you know, I had just a massive issue with feeling like, hey, I know how to do this better than anybody else does. And so, like, just let me do it.
Right.
And it was mostly in the sense of worship.
Mm.
God, at a very young age, gave me, I come from a very musical family.
You sure do.
As you guys know, Luke is a part of Surrounded. My mom is a part of Surrounded. My sister is going to soon be a part of Surrounded and everything like that. Trevor, who will probably be on the podcast eventually, he is not as musically talented as us.
But he helps with a lot of the other stuff too.
Oh, he's so knowledgeable in so many other areas. But both of my parents sing. My mom is classically trained. So like come from a very musical family. So I just figured I know the most.
Yeah.
Because I come from a family who did this.
Yeah.
So I know the most. So just let me do it.
That's how that works.
Right. So there was this time where I was the youth band worship leader, and this was my sophomore year of high school or junior year. I was trying to remember before we filmed this of when exactly it was, but I couldn't remember. But I was asked to not lead and for somebody else to lead on a Wednesday night, and I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. I was like, why can't I even be up there? Like, this person who's doing it, like, doesn't know what they're doing. Like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And I was an absolute piece of garbage during that time. Like, do not get me wrong. I was being horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was pitching the biggest fit.
Right.
Like, the biggest fit of all time.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong. I was 100% wrong. But I didn't deserve what came next. So I was taken outside and was standing on this ramp with somebody in leadership at this church. I won't say what their role was. And I was just absolutely verbally assaulted. Was told things like, nobody is going to want to be led by you. Nobody is going to want to do anything with you. Nobody is going to want to do ministry with you or be a part of your life or anything like that if this is the type of person that you're going to be. And you've been like this for a long time, and we have tried to speak into your life to do it, but you have to make the decision not to do it because at this point, we don't know what else to do with you. And I was like,
there's a way to say that and not do that.
And I was like, my first question was like, okay, who's we? Like, who
Right.
else is
Right.
like? And so it was at that moment, like, legitimately, and like, I'm not saying this to be dramatic. I had a full mental switch where I went from being the most prideful person ever to being the most self-conscious person ever.
Yeah.
Where I was so afraid of what other people were thinking about me that I was just constantly in my head about everything. And every decision that I made and every reaction that I had, and all the way down to the way that I look. Like, I struggle really bad with my self-image and in a multitude of different facets and everything like that. And that, I think that was always in me. And I feel like it would have came out at some point anyways. But that's just the point that finally triggered it. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, he was going to be there. I was very much overcompensating of I'm the best of the best, when in reality, in my inside, I'm like, I don't know that I am anything at all.
Right.
And that's when my anxiety started.
Yeah.
And that is when, well, I don't know if I can say started, but that's where it's really became apparent.
Yeah.
And then, throughout the rest of my life, that's when, things happened with my dad for the second time and different things like that. And, that didn't help.
Right.
But I never talked about it because I felt like I couldn't. I feel like I needed to be strong. I had to.
Did you feel like that because, like, you're a dude and it's like men don't have anxiety and I'm the man of my house, especially once your dad went to jail? It's like, I'm the man of my house. I can't have anxiety.
Yeah, I think a little bit. It's like that nature versus nurture vibe because, like, my dad's a very emotional person.
Right.
Wow, and my mom is not as emotional as my dad. It's like they're two opposite ends of the spectrum where my dad is like, cries at movies and my mom's like, it's a movie. And so, But we were always able to be emotional. Like that was like, it wasn't something where we were taught like as because there's 3 boys and 1 girl in our family. Like we were allowed to be emotional. Like emotions were supposed to happen. They were very open about that. But I think it's the era I grew up in, playing sports, bros are bros.
Yeah.
We don't cry. We don't feel emotion. We don't get hurt. We don't get hurt feelings. Like we hurt feelings. We don't get hurt feelings.
Yeah.
And it was especially like that in high school.
Yeah.
And like we just weren't allowed to, or I felt like I wasn't allowed to feel those emotions.
Right.
And I also felt weird about the fact of like, at the time, I thought admitting this now is really gross, but like it's just true. I didn't think that like anxiety was like a real thing.
Oh, no, I totally get it.
And so I just thought it was like, you just don't know how to not be emotional. Yeah. Like grow up.
Right.
Type of deal. And then I like had my first ever panic attack and I was like, oh,
this junk's real.
This is not fake.
No.
Like
and
this
it's
literally
horrible.
Yeah, and I literally feel like I'm having a heart attack.
Yep.
Which I'm not going to tell that story because that'll give me one.
Yeah, right. Same.
But,
I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where I didn't feel like I could emote at all like that and at that deep of a level because I just wasn't. It was the era I grew up in and just, boys are boys and, only girls cry, only girls have emotions and everything like that, which is so dumb.
It's
and
so
like,
dumb.
Yeah. And it's not true.
No.
But
I mean, freaking Jesus cried. So
Jesus wept.
Jesus
wept. Did not cry. He wept.
Like a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. So that's a bunch of nonsense. But anyway, that's a different podcast.
That's a whole different podcast. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where that gets us up to what?
To probably to when you started coming to the church that I was leading at. And I was in a really bad place at that church. The sniffles are coming. I'm so sorry. Now that I'm talking, it's like, now it's like now you're going to.
Here we are. Yeah.
Because I was in a bad place. Like I've talked about my anxiety and stuff, so I'm not going to talk about that again. It's just very much there. Still is. But I was in a really hard place, especially with worship leading. And then you came in and I was like, who is this like little bro that, because I'm an only child, so I have 0 siblings.
Yeah.
I have 2 stepsisters that are way older than me and we never like lived in the house together. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're the same.
Yeah, literally actually
like
the same.
100% the same. And so we go to a worship conference, not like together, like our church went.
Yeah, the worship team went to this worship conference and we were going together. I had started coming to this church and leading at this church because my grandfather played there. And
you were, what, like 19?
Oh, man.
20? How old were you?
I was probably 20 at this point, I think.
I feel like that makes sense.
Was it that long ago, dude?
I think it
was.
Because
I'm almost 25 now, and like that seems like ages ago now.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, because that would have been like 2017, 18?
No, it would have been 2019.
19?
Yeah. 18 or 19, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Woof.
Yeah.
Yikes. So our church is at this conference, and I finally have someone who's like, oh, Elevation is playing? Let's be at the front doors. Because I'm like, praise God, finally somebody is like close to my age.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
because like
not a
we
lot
went with
older
the
than
worship
you,
team, and a lot of the worship team was older.
I was the youngest, and I am almost 32.
Yeah.
And I was the youngest by probably 15 or 20 years.
Well, you weren't
easily.
32 then. You were 27, 28?
Yeah, 27, 28, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But even that, so I'm pumped about Red Rocks and Elevation, and nobody else is. And then Jake is here like, I'm also pumped. And
very excited.
Yeah, front row, here we come.
I want to get up at 7 a.m. so we can get a front row seat.
And best decision we
and
made.
Everyone else
that
was
whole
like,
weekend.
no, I'll sit in the back.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was
Which,
great.
by the way, we didn't know who Red Rocks was when.
Yeah. Every time
I didn't know who Red Rocks was.
Every time I have to focus.
When we
had no clue.
No.
We were just like, this sounds good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
and then
here.
they played, and we were like, what song is this? And we looked it up on
Dude,
Spotify.
the
and we're
whole
like,
time, both of us are
save-
just
yeah.
like saving this song. What do you think this song's name is? Found it. It's this. Like the whole time.
It was so good. I love Red Rocks. They're awesome.
And like I started that night already feeling all the feels because I had run into my old worship leaders from Chicago.
Oh yeah.
And it was that was a whole bunch of feelings, and it was the best thing ever. And so I'm sitting, I've got them on one side and then you on the other. We had just got our faces blown off by Red Rocks worship. Like
our whole faces.
Like it was the most.
They killed it.
And then the stupid pastor comes out.
Dude, that was also the first time that what he did ever happened, like that I'd ever been a part of something
same.
like that. He comes out, he puts his notes down, and he was like, I have a whole other sermon written, but I just feel like God is telling me to talk about something else.
And we're both sitting there like, who's this guy?
Like, this is
Meanwhile,
weird.
I'm here having a whole moment. Like, I had just finished telling God, like, whenever you want to heal me from my anxiety is great because I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Like, we've had that whole moment. You're having a whole moment.
I'm having an entire crisis.
An
at this
entire
point.
crisis.
Yeah.
And he's like, so I'm going to talk about anxiety. And like, I don't remember when I started crying.
It's pretty early.
It's pretty early. And I'm not
early.
talking, I'm not a crier. Like
No, I think that is one of like 3 total times in our friendship of 4 years that I've seen you cry.
Yeah. And this was an ugly, like.
Oh yeah. Like full shoulder shake type
this
deal.
was not.
Like,
like I am trying not to make noise because there are people around.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, it was, we can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, that's what was happening with you, Jake, while I was
I'm sitting
sobbing.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there and I'm looking over and I'm like,
What's wrong with this
I'm like
chick?
freaking chill, dog. Like it's not that serious. And then I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking I just met this person.
I posted something about it on Instagram. I'm gonna find it while you're.
So
I gotta stalk myself real quick.
I'm like, I'm looking over at you and you're like having your moment, and I'm
Sure.
I'm like, dang, she's going through some stuff. And at this point, we had really not known each other for that long.
We were like surface level friends at that point. Like we like hanging out because it's so fun,
Right.
And we're really good friends. But like, that was it.
Yeah,
that was
really
the extent. Like we weren't.
It was like we like worship.
Yeah.
And like so that's what we're gonna do. And so which is go like listen to worship bands.
I can't find it on my Instagram anymore.
Oh, game over. That's lame.
Rip.
Podcast is canceled.
Yep.
I'm just kidding. But
I
for
have to
me,
remember what he said now.
well, for me, I'm sitting there and I'm like looking at him. I'm like looking at him and I see him, right? I see him talk.
Right.
And there were a couple things that he said that like I just kept, and I don't even remember exactly what it was. But whenever he was talking about anxiety and he was talking about his personal experience with it, and he had talked, I remember. He was talking specifically, this is the pastor of Red Rocks, he was talking specifically about he realized his anxiety as a pastor, like when he was a pastor. And he felt like he couldn't feel that way because he had to be strong for the church. And I was like...
You shut up with that.
I was like, that's crazy because I feel like I have to be strong for like my family and like everything that's going on. And I was like, and I'm looking at you and you're crying.
Oh yeah, having a whole.
And I'm up here and I'm like, what? Do I have anxiety? Do I have issues with anxiety? Like, is that what I'm struggling with?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't really put a word on it or anything like that. And then we leave.
Well, and I'm sitting there too.
Oh, yes.
Part of my issue the reason I was crying there was a lot of reasons I was crying, but to, sum it up, part of it, I had been praying since I'd really been officially diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, like, God, take this away. Like, you heal people all the time.
Yeah.
Like, my turn. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But sitting there in that moment, and I don't really ever feel like I've never heard like the still small voice or heard like the audible voice of God. But I felt like in that moment, God was basically saying like, I'm not going to heal you of this completely. Like, because I'm going to use it. Like, I'm not going to heal you because I'm going to use it. And I am just like, but that's stupid. Like, why? Why is this a thing? So then.
Yeah. So we leave, and
I drive us back to the hotel.
Yeah. You drive us back to the hotel because you had driven us there.
Yeah. Because we got there early because we wanted to sit up front.
Because we wanted to sit up front
Yep.
because we're ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
Why did we sit up front? Oh.
We were just pumped, I think.
No, it was because Brian and Jen Johnson were there.
You're right. Red Rock's open
Red
for
Rock's
them.
open for them.
And the pastor spoke. You're so right.
Yeah.
It was, yep.
And then Brian and Jen Johnson came out and just smashed our faces in.
Yeah.
Which didn't help.
No.
And so
I think that was part of the problem, is it was just one. I
Yeah.
was set up for failure, really, is what it was. Yeah.
Meanwhile, like I didn't know any of those things, right? And
Yeah.
so we get in the car, we're driving back, and I don't remember like the nitty-gritty details of that conversation.
No.
But I just remember us talking specifically about the sermon.
Uh-huh.
You opened up and were like, yeah, so like me all day. Like
Yeah.
that's literally, I have massive struggles with anxiety and
like I was medicated at that point, I
Right.
think. Like
and I was like, I think I also do, but I don't actually know.
yeah. And I think I just told you, like, well, tell me,
Yeah.
explain it to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like I remember laughing and being like, my dude,
Yeah, you have it.
like, you're telling me what I told my doctor
Uh-uh.
when he was like,
Uh-huh.
you have an anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
Like, it was like almost to a T,
Yeah.
like the exact.
Yeah. And like my
So I
symptoms
diagnosed
were
you in
very
my
much
car.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause my symptoms were exactly the same and,
Yeah.
and everything that I had felt for the past however many years of, stomach pains and the, not wanting to eat and different things like that. And like I didn't drop massive amounts of weight. Like my anxiety didn't overtake me like that, but it did put me in massive states of like manicness where like I would go through these spells where like I'm just like happy Jake, I'm just pumped to be alive, and then I'm like I hate everything and nobody can do anything right for me right now, and I want everyone to like get away from me always.
Yeah.
And so I was just going through this like these manic episodes, and like and so you had pointed that out, like we had talked about, not pointed it out, but we had talked about it, and if it wasn't for you opening up, I don't think that I don't think that I would have ever figured it out.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's true. I'm sure God would have brought somebody else to me, but like it took that for me to be able to realize, oh, okay, I have something that I need to directly deal with and that I need to realize is an issue. But yeah, dude, like that whole entire experience was wild.
Yeah. Well, and it was wild for me too, because it was so quick that I felt like God was like, I'm not healing you completely of this.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what the heck? Why not? And then literally like in the car, I was like, oh, like this is why. Because now like, I can help people through it because.
Absolutely.
And well, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because now I sort of feel like I'm not on the other side of it. I don't want to say that because I very much am still struggling, but like I feel like I'm in a place where I can be like, no, I know what that feels like, and I know that literally nothing I tell you right now is going to change it.
Right. And it's one of those things where I feel like, because we've talked about this, where it's like when you have an anxiety disorder, like you're going to deal with it for the rest of your life.
Yes.
It's always going to be there.
Because that's your brain.
Right.
Yeah.
And but how you manage it changes.
Yes.
And how you learn how to live with it.
And you learn, like, I know the things now where I'm like, being in this situation is going to give me anxiety.
Right.
Or I can be like sitting here right now and being like, wow, I'm feeling like a lot of my anxiety symptoms. And then think about like, oh, well, this, and this is happening. So like, that makes sense.
Right.
And that's something like that counseling was really good for me. Like discerning, okay, this is your anxiety disorder because your heart is racing. You're about to have a panic attack for no reason.
Yeah.
Or for what feels like no reason. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm like, nothing's wrong. But then also like with my situation or even with you, like, no, your dad just went to jail.
prison.
Right. Yeah. Your dad went to prison. Like that's anyone's going to freak out, and your anxiety disorder is just making it worse. But like
Right.
that is a
And then I'm
that's a thing
then
that-
I'm burying it,
yeah, right.
which doesn't help.
Right.
And I think
How
that's
many
where
people, I meant to ask you this, as that was happening, how many people knew that that's what was happening in your life besides your family? Like, was that something that like, because I didn't know. I feel like, did you tell me that night with the anxiety stuff? I don't remember when I found out about your dad. I just remember knowing about it.
I think I may have told you in that same, I think it was
That
just a
weekend.
massive download session.
I think that whole
during
weekend
that.
was just, yeah.
It just was.
But we'd been friends for a while at that point. So.
Yeah. Well, so my dad had gone in like a year before that.
Yeah.
So like it had already been happening.
Right.
But when it was happening, I had people in my life who knew it was happening.
Yeah.
Like, because I was very close to a lot of people at the church that I went to.
Right.
And that's where my family went.
Right.
So like when dad's not here, when he's
People
always
are gonna
here,
start
people are going to be
asking
like, where's he at?
Because church people be nosy.
They do be nosy.
Yep.
And so when we went through all that and so people knew, but I didn't, it wasn't like I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted, I just didn't want to be it goes back to what I said at the beginning. Like, I don't like people feeling sorry for me.
Yeah.
I don't want people to feel sorry for me.
Right.
I want people to care about me because they just genuinely care about me and not care about me because, like, my dad's in prison.
Right. And I feel bad for you.
And so, like, yeah, and I just didn't want that.
Yeah.
And so it just made things that much more difficult. So I just didn't talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
And then I reverted to joking about it, which I still
You
do.
You all do. All four of you do.
Yeah. All of us children do it.
So sorry for that one.
And it's probably not a good thing that we do it, but it's just a coping
it's like
mechanism.
one of the first times I met your sister. She made a joke about your dad being in prison. And I was like, oh, you all do this. Okay.
Yep.
Like,
yeah. I think I had started doing it and it just became, or maybe it was my mom. No, it definitely wasn't my mom.
It's just a coping.
Yeah, it was for sure not my mom. I think it was either me or Luke, probably.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just part of how we coped, and
yeah.
now it's so different now because now we're 5 years in,
right?
And in the state of Florida, you serve like 83% of your sentence,
right? And
so he's right now supposed to be out in January of 2024.
Whoa.
So it's coming up soon. So this next coming year, he'll be back. But we will have gone through almost 6 years of him being gone.
Yeah.
But it's so different now because he's just a completely different person now.
Yeah.
He's a completely different person. And so is my mom.
Yeah.
And so are all of my siblings. Like,
You
all of
are,
us are
yeah.
completely different now.
Right.
Like, I'm like super married.
Super married.
When my dad went in, I was like super not married and single and didn't even know Savannah.
Right.
Megan was in middle school. She's about to graduate high school.
So I was just gonna say.
Trevor was in high school and he's about to graduate college. Luke, it will be going into when he's out, he'll be going into his junior year of college.
Right.
So like everything
You're all
is
like
different.
Whole entire people.
Yeah.
Now, like.
And my mom has grown even more than any of us.
Oh, I'm sure.
She's always been a very independent person.
Yeah.
But now it's like she has learned that like she is like she's so incredibly strong.
Mm-hmm.
So incredibly strong. And had to be.
Yeah.
For all of us or we wouldn't have made it.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say about that because I don't really want to get emotional right now. So
it's fair.
But yeah, she's the best. She's a rock star and yeah. So, but yeah, all that to say, like when it comes to mental health, and it comes to anxieties, when it comes to your physical ailments, when it comes to the things on the outside that affect your mental health, all the things that we've talked about throughout this series, hopefully as you guys have listened and watched this, you guys have seen how God has impacted us even through the garbage.
Yeah.
And how all of us had to lean on God.
Right.
We had to. We had no choice.
Right.
But you can lean on him always.
Yeah.
Like, you can lean on him for the dumbest stuff.
Right. Well, there's the verse that says like, with like the lilies, like he makes sure they're fine.
Yep.
So
if he dresses the lilies.
Yeah, for the littlest thing,
Mm-hmm.
he will take care of your littlest thing.
Yeah,
like the most
he will.
insignificant.
Because he cares that much.
Right.
And I feel like it's so hard for us to comprehend that he cares that much.
Right.
Because he's so big.
Yeah,
and
our
we're so
puny
small.
human brains just can't.
No.
Yeah.
But like that's okay.
Right.
Like that's totally okay. That like you don't have to comprehend that.
Right.
But just know that he does care. He does love you. He's going to run after you. That's why you know, the Corey Asbury song "Reckless Love." Everybody loves to theologically debate that song. But here's just the fact.
Yeah.
If somebody on earth were to love somebody like that, like the way that God loves us,
it'd be insane.
You would call it reckless, would you not?
Yeah.
You would call it stupid.
Our puny human brains can't comprehend. We don't have another word
instead
for it.
Instead of overwhelming reckless love of God, just say overwhelming stupid, dumb, idiot love of God. Because like,
are you actually insane?
For real.
Like, yeah.
Because like if you had somebody in your life who like if you had somebody in your life who was like dating somebody like that, where like
you would tell them to get the heck out.
Yeah, like they were just making all these mistakes and doing all this dumb stuff, and the person in your life is like just running after them still. Like you'd be like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
No, stop it.
Right.
But God does that for us.
Right.
Not that you should do that. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
But don't do that.
Point.
Yeah, that's not the point.
No.
The point is the fact that we are going to screw up. We're gonna mess this up, and God knows that, but yet still He runs after us.
Yeah. Well, it's always been encouraging to me as we kind of like wrap up too is I never really realized how much the Bible talks about anxiety and worry. And I feel like, again, this is a whole nother pod, but the church doesn't always handle anxiety in particular very well because people see the verses of do not be anxious about anything.
Right.
And they're like, so what are you doing? Like, pray more. Like, obviously your relationship with God isn't strong enough if you're this anxious.
Yep.
But there's so much scripture about like, well, like when you're anxious and when you're worried, this is what you should do because God's the one that created us.
Yeah.
So He knows that we're going to feel that. And I wrote out one verse because, was it last week? This verse was just like it was written on a 2x4 and God was just like smacking me with it. Because so one thing I do every year in my teacher planner, I write a Bible verse every week in the planner, and like those verses, like I put it on social media and like my family and friends like send me the verses, and I randomly, because God, whatever, I just write them in.
It's not random.
No, it's not. And last week, and so what I started doing this year is before I start every class, because I'm at a Christian school, so before we start every class, I do like a verse of the week. And so that verse that's in my planner, we read that verse every day before class. And last week was Matthew 11:28-30.
Ah, yes.
So that just happened to be the verse, and we all tired. So like that was great for everybody. I have this little devotional that I forgot about that's for anxiety, as a little like devotional book. And so since mine was really bad last week, I literally had to dust that off. First page I opened to, it has a verse, a prayer. You thank God for His goodness. You write down what's making you anxious. Like, what are your worries today? And then there's some other guided stuff. The first verse was Matthew 11:28-30. And I was like, I get it. Thank you. So I'm going to read it so that you guys can also get hit in the face with it.
Read it, bro.
And this is NIV, which is how I learned the verse. And so this is like how I read it every time. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Yeah. And I love that when I'm feeling all of that anxiety, like I don't have to carry it by myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I think that's a part of the verse that I always like, I don't think about it really. And so It's comforting to know that like he might not take the anxiety away from me, but I don't have to hold all of that.
Right.
Myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to read it in just in a different version, just
Yes,
in
please.
ESV.
Yeah.
I feel like this verse in particular, it's very much the same, but just to kind of give you guys another version.
Yeah.
Starting in verse 28, it says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." I think it's so important that we have to understand that we don't have to carry the burden.
Right.
We don't have to.
Nope.
Even though we want to.
Yeah.
Even though we act like
easier.
we have to. Yeah. We think it's easier.
Right.
I think it's easier. But
so much harder.
It's hard. It's hard to let things go sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
But before we jump off, you had put a couple of other verses on here, and if we can throw them up on the screen. We don't need to
fire.
Yeah, we can just put them up on the screen. Just if you guys want to go, if you guys are at home and are struggling with anxiety, or you're struggling with giving things up and laying these things at the feet of the cross, there are a couple scriptures here that I think you should go and check out. There's Psalm 34, verse 17 through 18, Romans 8, 38 through 39, Psalm 23, verse 4, Psalm 66, verse 19, Philippians 4, 6, 2 Corinthians 10, 3 through 5, and Philippians 4, 8. So if we can throw those up on the screen just so that you guys want to, take a picture of it, or if you're listening to this podcast, go check out the video version so you guys can get all those. And
go
check
back
them out.
and listen to it. Throw them on a note in your phone.
Yeah, go back and listen to it. Yeah, write them all down. It's so important when you're talking about mental health, when you're talking about anxiety, when you're talking about things like substance abuse, when you're talking about your physical health, when you're thinking about outside things that can affect your mental health. Yeah, that we always come back to Scripture. Yeah, and we see what God has to say about it. Yeah, and He will speak through it. Yeah. Let's end it here. Yeah. This was a good series. This was great. It was very therapeutic, I think, for us.
All of us.
For all of us. And it's a heavy series, but we felt very passionate about talking about this subject.
It's a big part of who a lot of us are.
Absolutely.
And surrounded. So.
Sure is. Absolutely. Yeah. But listen, guys, thank you guys so much for watching and for listening. Don't forget to go follow us on all social media platforms at SurroundedW, on Instagram and on Facebook. And don't forget, every other Saturday, we worship together on youtube.com/surroundedworship. We love you guys. We will see you guys next time.
All right, see ya.